Imagine a country in last 40 years haven't made a single dam. And you have just a country across which has made 5,000 dams. And you have 80,000 in China and you have 70,000 in US.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that fundamentally it's a national security Kalabagh Dam. This should have been the best place for Pakistan to construct a dam.
Which was not even a disputed territory.
Which was not, and at the time of Tarbela, there was an option picking up either Tarbela or Kalabagh.
Right.
In a good sense, Tarbela was taken as an option, but Kalabagh, of course, it went in a thin air. Why? Because we fell prey to these political machinations, and then of course there was a inter and intra-provinces dispute which the federal government didn't have the ability to resolve.
Right.
You took a disastrous decision of dividing Wapda into 3 parts. As we speak now, why is your circular debt is not in control? Because you have these discos working under an organization which is sunset organizations. They can't even handle it.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Moeed Pirzada. I'm joined here by Chairman of Wapda General Muzammil Hussain. This discussion is part of the series of discussions I am conducting in view of Prime Minister Imran Khan's forthcoming meeting, visit and meeting with President of China, President Xi Jinping. As we understand, most of the discussions in China will remain focused on CPEC, and within CPEC, they will also remain focused on Pakistan's energy crisis and how the Chinese companies and investments are playing a role to improve Pakistan's energy situation. This is what I would like to understand from Chairman Wapda. General Muzammil, thank you so much for finding time.
Pleasure.
It's understandable that more than 20 energy-related, power-related projects are being financed directly or indirectly by the Chinese, inside Chinese companies working in Pakistan. But before we go on to this, I want to understand, I've been reading around and we keep on discussing on media, that Pakistan's energy situation started to deteriorate by the early 1990s. Why it happened?
First of all, thank you, Mohit, for the very important subject to discuss. To understand the dynamics of the energy crisis which started way back in 1890s, the 2 fundamental which we need to understand. The first is a question of energy needs increasing every year in every country, and that depends on the growth and pace of your economic development. The country with good pace of development should have about 5 to 7 minimum energy needs increasing every year.
5 to 7?
5 to 7%.
5 to 7%
every year. The second part is your food security. And the food security has 2 parts, which is the energy part and the water part. And for water, I'm sure you know that there's a very old saying that if you want to trace back the economic ill of any country in the world, they will reach back to water. And even Goldman Sachs has said just last month that water...
The investment bank.
That right. Water is going to be the petroleum of the next century. Unfortunately, we faltered on both. Way back in 1976, once we commissioned our large dam, the Tarbela Dam. Thereafter, there was a blackout for about 15-20 years.
Why?
We couldn't really keep pace with what needs to be done in 90s.
But you've been chairman of Wapda for a number of years, and Wapda was created to give the vision on water and power development. That is the Water and Power Development Authority in the early 1960s. Yeah. Was it Wapda's failure in giving the necessary vision to the governments, or the governments were politically stuck and they couldn't act on the vision?
It's a national policy. You know, Wapda is an executing authority. The good thing about Wapda is that this was raised on the lines of a TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority in US. And this is supposed to be having a single mandate act of parliament. That's a integrated development of water and hydropower resources in Pakistan. So entire structure of Wapda is similar to what is in TVA in US. So the first 20 years have been a glorious part of Pakistan's history and also Wapda's history.
60s and 70s.
Up till 76 or 75. Why? You did 2 large dams, you did 8 barrages, you did 9 link canals, and you laid the second largest transmission system of Asia after Japan. Now, having done that, there was definitely a need to carry this out for the next 10 or 20 years. We lost the way somewhere in the 70s. Imagine.
Then what happened?
What happened is...
You're referring to Varsak, Mangla, Tarbela and barrages.
Absolutely.
Then why we stopped at Tarbela?
We stopped it after Tarbela. There was, one economy of scale. You need to have a large dam which can help your energy, your industry to be more competitive. That we didn't do that. So we had a plans of going for Kalabagh Dam. We had a plans of going for Amir Pasha Dam. And we have 5 more sites on Indus Cascade starting from Shok, come down to Skardu, come down to Patan and Thakot, Dyamir Basha and Dasu, which we are doing fortunately now.
But after 30 years?
After 40 years actually, more than 45 years. So we woke up to this reality somewhere in 90s and we realized we don't have both. We don't have water and we don't have power. So then there was a firefight.
Right.
In the firefight, we took that fateful decisions of getting IPPs in Pakistan on the terms and conditions which suited them.
Right. No, but this is the other thing that intrigues many in the media and civil society, that why we went towards oil and gas, which were very clearly to be imported ultimately and were much more expensive than water. Why?
Yeah. Two reasons. You know, for developing hydropower, you need to have two fundamentals. The gestation period is more. You could take anything between 5 to 10 years, and they are initially capital intensive.
And they're initially
capital intensive.
Capital intensive.
Very
huge investment.
Huge investment to start with. So once you woke up in 90s that you don't have power, so if you could go in for hydropower, it would have taken you 5-10 years. So then there was a fight. There was a firefighting with the government policies. So you went for easy solution, having a fossil fuels, be dependent on the imported fuel which come from outside. It's a volatile market, it's expensive, it has destroyed your climate, and more importantly, they produce for you which you're not even using, and you end up paying them 60 to 80% of capacity charges. So it's a classical example of how not keeping a pace with your national needs. You know, water has two factors. It directly affects your food security and your human security. And these two fundamentals are cardinal for your national securities. You know, if you have violence, you have more number of people, you grew in population from 4 million to this part of 40 millions. Now you are about 220 million people. And you have urbanizations, which is irregulated. You have industries coming up, which has no regulations. And you are dependent on a power which is produced by mostly IPPs, and they're all run by oil and fuel. So now it's up to 4 decades. The government is fully now aware of this, that as we speak, we're doing 10 projects in Pakistan. I'll just give normal figures.
But just, I want to take you back.
Gee.
It's understandable that in 1994, the government was under pressure, that they immediately wanted energy and power and electricity, and they didn't have the gestation time period of 5 to 10 years, and they didn't want to incur the billions of dollar investment. To that extent, they were pressured. But between 1976 and 1994, the crucial 18 years, why were we sleeping on that?
Neglect.
Why?
That's the government's policy. The government, that's what I'm saying, the government faltered on that. You know, they couldn't pace with, like I said, they couldn't pace with what needs to be done. Imagine a country in last 40 years haven't made a single dam. And you have just a country across which has made 5,000 dams. And you have 80,000 in China and you have 70,000 in US.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that fundamentally it's a national security concept.
So what was Wapda doing?
On this. Oh, Wapda was doing the smaller project because Wapda, you know, is faced the brunt, you know, Wapda was unbundled. Imagine that whatever the pressures on the government of Pakistan, you took a disastrous decision of dividing Wapda into 3 parts. As we speak now, why is your circular debt is not in control? Because you have these discos working under an organization which is sunset organizations. They can't even handle it. Why is the NTDC a separate organization? Because they evacuate power from point A to the load center.
Right.
They don't work under Wapda.
But were they not created to improve the distribution and the management?
It hasn't done. It has given you 2.4 trillion rupees of circular debt. Your transmission system and distribution system is in shambles. Whatever you have in Pakistan installed capacity, it can't be transmitted. Why? Because as long as they were part of the Wapda, there was such a kind of a structure in place to take decisions. These two entities of disco companies.
The discos and the NTDCs came in 90s?
Oh, they took a decision by the end of 90s, and by about 2003-04, they were taken away from Wapda.
Right.
So they work under an organization called PEPCO, which does not have a wherewithal, which does not have a decision-making capacity, and which do not have the systems to really control such a huge monster like NTDC and distribution companies. So Wapda, as we speak, per se handles only hydropower development in Pakistan, and in that,
This is the first time I'm hearing this argument in such precise terms. So, where these ideas were coming from? Let's create PEPCO, let's create NDDC, let's create DISCOs. These ideas must be coming from somewhere.
yeah, well, I won't really raise finger on people, but I take the one single decision which was taken by in Prime Minister Shaukat Aziz's times during Musharraf's time, who was unbundling of the Wapda, and that hasn't done anything.
2002.
2000. They took a decision late 90s, but implemented somewhere in 2003-4.
So these decisions and ideas were not coming from World Bank and Asian Development Bank or
World Bank were part of it, but but World Bank decisions or the guidelines are essentially have to be compatible with what's happening in the country elsewhere.
Right.
Your losses are extremely more, and your recoveries are poor because your governance is zero. So World Bank can give you solutions which are based on the perfect conditions, the pre-plan. That's not in Pakistan.
Right.
If that doesn't happen, so you privatize these NTDCs or DISCOs,
Right.
standalone, they won't deliver. But World Bank wants you to do this.
Okay, bringing you back to, so we come back to 1994, we woke up after 18, 20 years, we realized we don't have
Little more, about 20 years.
20 years. We realized we don't have the energy, we immediately needed electricity, power and everything. But it still took us another 25 years at least before we started making these dams. Why?
Dam construction was, like I mentioned, say way back in 60s. Those people did a very difficult job of constructing Tarbela and Mangla and Varsak.
Right.
And I salute their ability and ability and professional competence. But times today have changed. Today you do not have funds to construct a dam.
Right.
Your economic challenge is absolutely critical. You do not have a technical capacity to construct dams. You are depending on the foreign supports.
But even in 60s, the capacity was coming from World Bank?
No, sir. The World Bank supported you on inter-station works because they brought in the Americans engineers and the British consultants too, and Mangla and Tarbela both.
Right.
This was in lieu of you giving away 3 rivers to India. So these projects were supported by World Bank in 60s. Now you don't have money, you don't have technical supports.
And that is how India
your
conceded
governance
to
is zero.
Mangla being on Azad Kashmir territory.
Absolutely. And now without money, without technical support, with your governance zero, your deputy commissioner cannot get the land now. And you have 5th generation war, anybody can speak a program in the evening on television. Saying
So they can say the Section 4 is...
They can say anything what's happening on earth. And now, and then of course, your safety networks like your NAB and your audit, when people are elected to take decisions.
So are you saying that from 1990s onwards, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank and international IFC financial institutions were not prepared to invest in these large dams because of the Indian concerns?
Practically. Because most of these dams are into area which they call them, of course, a disputed territory. You talk of Diamir Basha. Diamir Basha is, of course, this was on the landscape for engineering, say, way back in 1984, 1982, were monarchical studies.
Right.
But we managed to start constructing in 2020.
Right. So the finance and technical help was not available for these dams in the territories of Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. But what about the other dams that were not in disputed territory?
There aren't many. You could make some in KP because dams are only made in mountains. Of the entire Indus Cascade I'm mentioning, starting from Shiok, Skardu, Bunji, Harbo, they're all into GB and some of them are now in KP. We could have done well, say, for example, and let me give you an example of Kalabagh Dam. This should have been the best place for Pakistan to construct a dam.
Which was not even a disputed territory.
Which was not, and at the time of Tarbela, there was an option picking up either Tarbela or Kalabagh.
Right.
In a good sense, Tarbela was taken as an option. But Kalabagh, of course, it went in a thin air. Why? Because we fell prey to these political machinations. And then, of course, there was a inter- and intra-provinces dispute, which the federal government didn't have the ability to resolve.
Right.
So imagine a river which has 90 million acre feet water flowing at Kalabagh.
Right. 90 million.
90 million acre feet. 1 million acre feet is, you have 1 million acre of land and you have 1 foot water standing there.
Right.
Imagine the quantity of the water.
And we are not stopping that.
We're not stopping that.
We're not storing that.
Absolutely.
We're letting it flow to the sea.
Absolutely. And of course, waste out of it in agricultural practices, what we have. And those practices are absolutely primitive. You do the flood irrigations, you don't do the laser leveling, you don't have interface with technology, you use the different kind of seeds.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that, that's the past. The good thing is that as we speak today, we are doing 10 projects in Pakistan.
Right.
And these projects altogether will store 11 million acre feet water,
Right.
which is about 95% of what we are storing in last about 70 years.
But still, as compared to the 90 million acre feet, this is nothing. This is
Absolutely,
only 10%.
absolutely. Absolutely. But what you need is, if you have 100% increase in about
Right.
7-8 years time,
Right.
that's going to be phenomenal.
अच्छा, अब what I understand, जो समझ आती है इसमें से वो ये है कि we needed finance and we needed strategic technical support.
Yeah.
And this is where the Chinese, the CPEC and China's help comes into play. But after 2013-14.
Absolutely.
No one else helped us.
The Chinese help is basically in manifold. One is, of course, in the flag of CPEC. The CPEC is doing 3 different kinds of energy projects. You know, there are about more than $38 billion of the entire CPEC which is being used for energy part of it.
Right.
So in that they are doing the coal parts,
Right.
which is going to be about 6,000 megawatt. In that they are doing the hydropower. The 2 are near construction in next about 8 to 10 months. This is about 1,800 megawatt. And 2 more should come out in about 3 years' times.
Right.
And the third part is they're also helping you in the solar and also the wind projects.
Right.
So there's going to be about 17,000 megawatt power which comes through CPEC.
Right.
The second part, Mohit, is very important that in the context what's happening in the world elsewhere, we are making these 3 major dams like Dasu, Bhasha and Mohammed.
Right.
So it's Chinese companies which have come in international competitive biddings.
Right.
And their skills and their experience of having built dams like
And
three
perhaps they
gorges.
also raise financing for that.
Well, they do help us in whatever financial model we make, whether we're going for private credit or the buyer credits, they do play their part into this. But their ability to construct dams in Pakistan, along with the consultants what we have from the world over, we have a Montgomery Harza from US with us, working with us. We have Mott Modern from UK, we have SMEC from Australia, we have Pori from Sweden, and we have Dawson from Turkey. In the presence of these consultants and Chinese companies, we are basically doing such a phenomenal capacity upgradation of Pakistani engineers. Those engineers are going to be about 1,650 in numbers. And imagine they have done these 5 major projects in Pakistan, the young guys we have picked up from the best universities in Pakistan. So that's the kind of a role which China is playing now, and we will be grateful to them for that.
So what are the major Chinese companies that are helping us in these?
2 major, because you'll be happy to hear or surprised actually that of the entire water sector, more than 99% work is the Chinese companies. China Gazuba is doing my Dasu project, which is 4,300 megawatt. China Gazuba is also doing my Mohammed, which is 800 megawatt and storage of water. Power China is doing Zamir Basha, which is 8.2 million acre feet storage, gross storage, and again 4,600 megawatt. And we recently finished Neelam Jhelum project, which is about 969. This was also done by China Gazuba. And we've also started work on Tarbela 5, which is being done by Power China.
Right. So, and while we keep on hearing about these projects, when will the energy start to flow from these projects?
That's a good question. You know, in a time factor, I'll just explain to you in a normal terms that Pakistan is producing about 121 billion units a year of electricity. Of this,
Of a year.
Of a year.
And, and what's the daily production?
Well, depending on how much do you need. So spread over a year, 121 billion units. Of course, in summers we have more.
And when you say units, it means megawatts?
Though 1 kilowatts, 1 kilowatt hour.
Kilowatts.
So you have 39 megawatts installed capacity in Pakistan, and derated capacity
39,000 megawatts.
39,000 megawatts.
39,000. Right.
Of this, about 35 is what you can use, derated capacity. But your evacuation system can take only about 24,000 megawatts.
Right.
Now, what we are doing is that our phase program is that we added 7 billion units in the last 2 years.
Right.
By adding about 5 billion units in Neelam Jhelum and about 3.5 billion units at Tarbela 4. Now, from 30 billion units, the Wapda has gone to 37 billion units. This is precisely 30% of total power what you do. Now, our aim is to take this energy mix at least to 50% of the total power.
Right.
Now, how do we take this?
Right.
In our 10 projects what we are doing, we'll be adding 44 billion units in the next 7 years.
44 billion.
44 billion units. And of this, We'll be using, raising 21 billion units from Dasu,
Right.
and 18 billion units from the Amir Basha, and about 4.5 billion from Momant, and about 4 billion from Tarbela.
Right.
5. Now your question on timings. You know, our watershed time is 2025.
2025. We are in 2022 now.
22 now. By end of 2025, we'll be able to add 12 billion from Dasu, the first stage. We'll be able to add about 4 billion from Momant, and we'll be able to add about 4 billion from Tarbela 5. So you have 20 billion units coming by end of 25. And from 25 to 28 December, that is about 3 to 4 years. That is where we had 12 billion units more, about 20 billion units
Can
more.
we hope that within the next 10 years or maybe 12 years, we can wean away and shift from a dependence on oil and gas for electricity and power back to the hydroelectric, or we can improve a mix?
Mohit, it's a very interesting question. You know, the hydropower is cheap, is green, and of course you can reuse it. At the same time, you also need to have some power to be used during the winter times, where you need to, of course, have the patch up to have your energy mix coming up for your industrial capacity building.
Right.
What I'm saying is that, like,
And we don't have the hydroelectric in the
like
winters.
we have enough, because we have now, for example, Neelam Jalam or whatever project what we have, we store water. Now, this is a very interesting mix. If you have more storages, that is where the Kalabagh dam comes into play.
Right.
Like from Tarbela, we do not have any storage downside Tarbela. So we can only produce electricity, and we can, once we release water for agricultural needs.
Right.
So power is a byproduct.
Right.
We don't waste our water for power generations. But if we release water at Tarbela, it is still going to the sea.
But you being Chairman Wapda, I have lived all my life next to Mangla Dam, living in Mirpur as a school child. The Mangla Dam starts to get empty after, say, September or October. Are we still producing something from Mangla, or what is Mangla's production or contribution once the water level goes down?
Let me explain to you the concept. The concept is that if you release water, you produce power. But we don't release water for producing power. So fundamentally, the question is that we need to have more storages. If you have Kalabagh, you could release water from Tarbela whenever you want to produce more power, even in winters. But now if you release water and there is no indent or requirement of the Punjab and Sindh, we can't release water. Same is Bangla. So more number of storages will also help you to produce more power.
To basically,
Tarbela, we are producing.
To basically strategically plan the water release. This is what you're saying.
Yeah, if you have more storages, in case you have a cascade effect, you store water at the Amir Basha.
Right.
You produce power, and you release water whenever you want for the power and store it at Tarbela.
Right.
At Tarbela, you store water and also produce power. If you release it, store at Kalabagh times.
Right.
So both storages will give you more water, but more importantly, more energy to produce.
So, but Jalsa, we can also learn much from China, because this is a country with 80,000 plus dams. This is also a country that started making dams hundreds of years ago because of the flood problem on Yangtze, Yellow River and all that. What are the learning lessons or the critical points we can learn from them?
3. You have to make your long-term sustainable policies.
Right.
That's, I think, Chinese art for governance. The second is the quality. Imagine they've constructed 3 gorges. So one dam alone produces 23,000 megawatts. And third is their domestic or homegrown.
Is this one of the largest dam in the world?
It is. And the third part is the capacity building.
Right.
So they have developed a capacity of Chinese engineers to produce or construct or do any kind of a power project. We are focusing on the same.
Right.
In this next 9 years, we started way back in 2018. We have a sustainable program regardless of the time it takes. We have an innovative financial model where, despite the economic challenges, we are doing $26 billion projects in Pakistan. And out of $26 billion, it's only 20% which is being taken care by the government of Pakistan. Rest, it's Wapda's own model. We have equity generation. We have a commercial financing, both domestic and foreign. And you'll be glad to hear we become the first Pakistani parastatal which have gone for the international credit rating. And this rating has been done by all 3, the Fitch, Moody's and S&P. And we've been also successful in launching the first green Eurobond in London. So we got the first $500 million green Eurobond, without government guarantee and without having any assets.
Without the
pledged.
government guarantee?
Without government guarantee.
This is Wapda's own standing.
Absolutely.
At what rate you have got it?
Similar to the government of Pakistan's rate. You know what I'm telling you is the precondition is that you need to have your credit rating done by 3 agencies, and we got out from 3.
Right.
So that was a good enough standing. Wapda's own balance sheet, Wapda's decision making, Wapda's financial model,
Right.
robust inflow of the tariffs. We go into the market in London and we got 5 million. We are raising $6 billion on our own for these projects.
Right.
Linking it with the Chinese concept, what you're saying, sustainability. We started in 2018 and we'll be doing that till 2028. Second is by having all the international consultants and Chinese companies, we are creating a reservoir treasure of Pakistani engineers.
Right.
And third is our financial models are essentially those which are not causing that stress from the
So I
government.
understand that China's help is not only helping us in terms of finance or the immediate construction, but is also helping us to develop
Absolutely.
human resource potential
Absolutely.
in the engineering, because China. So 2, 3 more themes. From this discussion, I understand that water is also of critical importance. It's not only the power.
More than power.
And
It's
what
more
are we
important.
doing for water, for a population that is growing and will probably be becoming 33 and 50 million in the next 10 years?
Absolutely. You know, Mohit, in water, there are 3 things important. The storage is one part. We need to have more storages.
Right.
The second is conservation part, and third is the management part.
Right.
We're extremely poor in both management and conservations, and we haven't done well in storage. Like I said, we're storing only 10% of the water.
Right.
Of 145 million acre feet water coming in Pakistan, we're storing only 10%. And this percentage, like I said before, that we're taking this
Can we
from
so
13
what
to
is
22
realistic?
million acre feet
So you said
water.
140 million plus acre water is coming and flowing through Pakistan.
Yeah.
And we're only storing less than 10%. What is a realistic storage capacity we can build in the next several decades?
Well, we can at least, first is the capacity of the water availability, second is the capacity. On Indus Cascade alone, you could store 30 million acre feet water.
Right.
And we haven't that, we're doing only 6 million acre feet. So our plan is that we're storing water at Jabir Basha, 8.2 million acre. We have a site on, we're constructing a dam on Mohammed. Kalabagh Dam is on site. Given the political harmony between the provinces, we can kickstart the work yesterday. It's all geared up. And in view of this CPAC road, which has been constructed, the western route, it's much easier for us to start working on Kalabagh. It can come up in 4 to 5 years' time. And then we have 2 more sites. One it is Skardu, one it is in Shok, and Thakot and Patan. So our plan has been lined up, and Allah willing, once you complete these 10 projects,
Right.
we'll be in much better position
So
to
what
take
would
it
be the
further.
total percentage of the water we'll be able to store?
These projects, what I'm doing right now, from 13, I'm adding about 11 more. So that means at about 21 million acre feet water. So that's about more than 20%.
More than 20%.
Yeah.
But that is a maximum?
No, we can take it to even 30%.
So any idea what percentage of water Chinese are storing of the rivers?
You know, their storage of water is a different concept. They are not really looking at only for the purpose of irrigations. The patch of populations in China for the economic development have a different dynamics. We have an agrarian societies. You know, 60% people in Pakistan are living on agriculture. And you need to grow more in Pakistan to have a food security. And that will lead you to have a human security. So our needs actually cannot be compared with China in terms of what percentage of water is required to be stored. But
the Prime
once we
Minister
increase,
keeps on saying that we have to learn from Chinese in the agriculture, water use, water conservation.
absolutely. Their strategies are threefold. One is that, you know, how to conserve water, how to manage water, and the classic is the kind of agriculture skills they are using it. You know, we don't need to have a sugar cane and cotton in Pakistan,
Right.
but we can't live with them. But the kind of a seed what you use, that is even worse. The kind of, for drinking water in Karachi, we've not been able to give water to Karachi in last 70 years. We are now going for the K4 project, drinking water to people of Karachi after 10 years.
So, what can be done away? Why we have not been able to move away from the flood irrigation?
Why? Because your people are not interfacing with technology. And unless you price the water,
Right.
water pricing is extremely important. And the water good or the economic good in water is that's your life. Your governance is not good enough to ensure that people use water judiciously, they conserve it, You have equitable use, and more importantly, they pay for what they use.
Right.
But it's the easiest community what you have in Pakistan.
Right.
You have the landlords, the people who use water and don't even pay for this.
So one last question. What are your expectations from the meeting between Prime Minister Imran Khan and President Xi Jinping and the delegation meeting?
And look, I'm very extremely happy to hear of this meeting. You know why? It has two domains. One is, of course, it's a political domain, and we have an everlasting relationship with them. And I'm sure it will be a step further for the relationship. The second part is that we will translating those relationships into hardcore development projects. So our reliance on China is pretty high in order, both in terms of technical support and financial support. I'm sure this is going to be a good visit, and we'll benefit, especially Wapda will be very beneficial of this visit.
Thank you, John sir. Thank you so much for finding time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.